In fact, one of my old bosses used to crassly refer to his butts in the seat is really what mattered. The greatest number of DVDs ever sold was in 2005, and then it started declining every year after that. And the world changed, and people got accustomed to streaming and paying, at that point, $7, $8 a month, now 20 in some cases, depending on your subscription. Once people get out of a habit of doing something, whatever it may be, it's really hard to get them back in the habit. I haven't seen a recent number, but it would be a small percentage of movies that make enough money in their theatrical release for a studio to break even. Only about 5% of movies ever actually break even. And that's something that really makes it a tough business. There are very few products in the market where such a small percentage of the product you make actually makes money.
We're going to talk about movies today and how movies have changed. And luckily, I have really an expert in the area. Blair Westlake has been chairman of Universal TV and Studios. And at Microsoft, he created the media and entertainment department and was responsible for all the relationships with the media and entertainment people and particularly the record labels. So, Blair, when we think about movies, it seems to me there's been kind of an industry that's fading. I go to the movies, there's not that many people in the movies. What happened?
Well, it's a good question. And in some respect, it's painfully simple. The movie business in terms of, and there are various components on what I'll draw a distinction. There's the theatrical exhibition business, which is the making of a movie primarily and with the intention of its initial exhibition being in a movie theater. For 100 plus years, that was how all movies started as far as the public seeing it. And that business has been under stress for some time, stress as in declining attendance. If you look back, the exhibition business, again, people buying movie tickets has been on a steady decline every year for the last 25 plus years. COVID aside, COVID certainly accelerated that and exacerbated it. When you really analyze the movie industry, that's what counts, because increase of ticket prices just obfuscates what is actually occurring. In fact, one of my old bosses used to crassly refer to his butts in the seat is really what mattered. So that's been on the decline. The movie business until the VHS and beta cassette came along was struggling. It was really a two-source revenue. It was the making of the movie, putting it in the theater, and eventually a movie might, depending on the movie, make its way to television, and a studio would earn money from a secondary exhibition on television. But that was it. Along came the VHS and beta, which, as much as it terrified the industry, and the company I worked for 20 years, was so concerned it went so far as to sue Sony and the famous Universal Studios versus Sony, and Disney joined, but as a very passive plaintiff, and tried to stop it. And ultimately, the Supreme Court ruled that it was perfectly legal. I'm summarizing a long opinion, but that was the bottom line. And so it gave the studios a second wind, a huge second wind. It was the only drawback was it was the rental business, and under the first sale doctrine, as it's known, the studios didn't participate in the revenue from renting the movie. Only the video cassette rental company did, and at that point, nobody was selling video cassettes. Well, then along came DVDs. And DVDs became, with the brilliant thinking of a man named Warren Lieberfarb, who ran Warner Home Video at the time, it became a sell-through business as opposed to really a rental business. And so the studios were participating in the revenue from every DVD sold. And it was great because Walmart, for one, the big box retailer in the world, was willing to sell them at a loss leader. They sold them for at or below what they actually paid for them to bring customers into the store. And they knew people would throw a bunch of other things in their cart in addition to the DVD, and they were willing to basically make no money or little or lose money. Well, in 2005, the DVD business capped out. It hit its peak. The greatest number of DVDs ever sold was in 2005, and then it started declining every year after that. And that, of course, meant fewer dollars coming to the studios, obviously. And along with the decline of people actually going to the movie theaters, there was that decline, coupled with the fact that the cost of making movies has traditionally been higher than the Consumer Price Index, CPI. So you've got your costs are going up faster than even the CPI. Your costs are going up while your revenues are going down. You don't have to be an economist to know those two really don't correlate. And most people would agree some of the great movies of the past in terms of creative juices that went into writing has been on the decline. I recently did a ChatGPT to ask what the greatest films of the last 6 decades of each decade. And when you look and you look back and you see films like, Dr. Zhivago and going back, Gone with the Wind and so many films, and then you start looking at the more recent that are primarily the movies that are primarily making money today are remakes and sequels. And, there's huge fatigue that occurs with consumers seeing remakes and sequels. So you've got this combination of spiraling costs, declining revenues, fewer people going to movie theaters, which is the reason movies are made. And then in 2007, when I was at Microsoft, we launched Netflix on Xbox, which was the first device to have connectivity between the television and the internet, other than people jury-rigging it around. That was a long time ago, and the world changed, and people got accustomed to streaming and paying, at that point, $7, $8 a month, now 20 in some cases, depending on your subscription. And consumer, along with, as everybody knows, along with 50, 60-inch high-def monitors, a whole boatload of people are saying, this worked for me. I'm willing to stay home. And there are a lot of reasons, which I don't need to get into as far as people's views about the state of movie theaters and the experience of having people talk and use phones and all the rest. So as I say, it's painfully, in one sense, kind of simple. But once I happen to believe, and I think a lot of people do, once people get out of a habit of doing something, whatever it may be, it's really hard to get them back in the habit. It's why subscription services try so hard to keep you connected to them, because they know once you kind of turn it off, it's really costly. And it is costly. With churn is a very expensive proposition for companies in the subscription business. They really want to keep you. And some companies have gone so far as to make it so difficult they've ended up, getting sued and taken to court by the Federal Trade Commission because it's so difficult.
I think you're talking about my experience trying to get rid of Cox cable.
Well, yes, and there are many experiences, and there was even a law that was supposed to have gone into effect that unfortunately was tossed after it was ready to be enacted, which was, I've forgotten the term for it, but the law was to go into effect, I think it was this year, to allow any consumer to turn off a subscription basically in a matter of a couple clicks. And I say this in big quotes, mysteriously, the law was not fully enacted. And so consumers are still facing the same problem that they had before, which is in some cases jumping through huge hoops to, quote, get out from underneath a subscription.
Yeah, that's clearly why they want to do subscriptions. But it seems to me, Blair, that what you've said is we have a business where the whole business model has sort of vanished. Everything is changing. And traditionally, that's really hard for management to deal with. The media and entertainment business has had changes in the past. They've had managers and they've had people who could deal with it. I mean, do we have any of those?
Well, the challenge, as I see it right now, is that for really multiple decades, really from the 70s to the last few years, there has been some technology in the offing or implemented that, like VHS, the internet on some level, that afforded these companies a new source of income. The business of, say, 2010, just to pick a round number, the movie business had roughly 7 windows, between the theatrical window all the way to a second pay TV window. And movie studios kind of looked at movies in terms of, can I break even, make money in what they call the 7-year ultimate? Well, the problem now is there really are only 2 windows to speak of, meaningful windows. I mean, there used to be a network television window, so you could see a movie on a CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox. There was the home entertainment window of physical goods, DVDs, VHS. Those are basically gone. So you're down to 2 windows: the theatrical release, which almost no movie, very few movies ever break even on a theatrical release. I mean, I haven't seen a recent number, but it would be a small percentage of movies that make enough money in their theatrical release for a studio to break even. Because remember, only about half the money winds up in the studio's hands. And so then you've got the streaming services. And the streaming services are generally, amongst the larger studios, are affiliate companies of the motion picture studios that make the movies. And so it's really money moving left to right on the columns. And those streaming services, under some of the richest pay TV deals of 2 to 3 decades ago, a movie on a pay TV service, which would be kind of the first window after the home entertainment window, a movie might, if it was a hugely successful movie, might earn $20-25 million. Well, that was again year $2,000, which would be the equivalent really to about 35 million today. Well, there's no streaming service paying $35 million for a movie that started in a movie theater. So the challenge, stepping back, if one did a Harvard Business School review, I think what somebody would be saying is, well, you've either got to take your cost way down, which kind of begs the question of where AI fits into this. You've either got to take your cost way down. You either got to find a new source of revenue, which again, the studios are not in the business of inventing technology. So they're really beholden to some third party or parties to come up with a new technology. And I think I think for the foreseeable future, you really have to ask, can you be in the business of making only 4 or 5 movies a year, which is the numbers per studio? The numbers are shrinking. Roughly, and again, some would take me to task for this because it's not but across the board, only about 5% of movies ever actually break even. And that's something that really makes it a tough business. There are very few products in the market where such a small percentage of the product you make actually makes money. Forget the jokes about Hollywood accounting. Makes money.
It reminds me, I worked in the oil business. It's a very capital intensive business.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of money, $1 million a day drilling a hole in the ground, and it may come up with nothing, right? This is the same kind of a business. You have a huge amount of money creating a movie and marketing it, right? And it doesn't seem that there's really, in oil business, there's a lot of science and geology, but it doesn't always work. I think the movie business has the similar kind of a challenge.
And the time lag too. I just saw a clip this morning of a new AI created animated film called Critters, ending with a Z, and that OpenAI is funding, that's reportedly costing somewhere just south of $40 million to make. It'll take about 9 months, and it's supposed to premiere at the Cannes Film Festival next year. Well, the headline alludes to Pixar should be worried. Pixar movie can take 2 to 4 years. Those movies don't tend to fall out of favor in terms of taste the way your live action movies do. But, a movie like that is way over $40 million to make and way over 9 months to make. And time is money. And the thing, as I alluded to with scripted films, is taste change, and what's appropriate changes. Appropriate maybe is not the best word, but what is appealing to the average consumer can change over 2-3 years. And from the time a movie is green lit to the time it opens at a theater can be easily 2 years. And so there are all these things that, it's a longer discussion how AI will fit in, and I'm certainly not in any way thinking that AI is going to, left to its own devices, make movies. And for one thing, you can't even copyright a film that doesn't have a material amount of human involvement in the creation. So nobody's going to probably put much out that fails that test for fear it'll fail the copyright test, and the film will be public domain the day you open it. But there are implications, both good and not so good, in terms of what AI will be able to do to facilitate some of the changes needed.
We have interesting time ahead of us, and there's opportunity for innovation and for different thoughts. Thank you very much, Blair. I really appreciate you making the time. I always enjoy speaking with you, and once again, appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay.